Hi, everyone. Welcome to this clip where we're talking about the sensory welcoming playroom. And as I talk about this, I'm going to focus on a playroom setting, but it doesn't have to stop there. I mean, think about your whole office or clinic space, even the waiting room, the encounters throughout the possible building that a child might be coming into that they would experience. What would they experience as they navigated through any part of the office or clinic where they're going to be coming to see you? So let's talk about the sensory welcoming playroom. I like to think about it as a sensory informed and affirming space, and that the play therapist has been mindful in creating this space with the sensory different child in mind. What's the ultimate goal here? The ultimate goal is to have a playroom space where a sensory different child would walk into that playroom and they would feel supported in their sensory differences. They would be able to find themselves in the playroom in terms of maybe their sensory play preferences, and certainly that their sensory needs would not be triggered. So let's kind of talk about what that looks like. First step, being sensory informed and affirming. This means for the play therapist that time is spent on learning about what are the sensory needs, what are the sensory differences, what's the sensory system of this child that's coming in to see me that I'm working with. Ideally, getting this information before they ever enter into the playroom space with you. So then you can make sure that that playroom space is a good fit for them and not something that's going to dysregulate them. So this is requiring you to have a process of getting this information in the beginning, somewhere in your intake, somewhere before the child comes into the playroom, asking parents, having paperwork that's completed, really trying to discover this before anything happens in the playroom. Sometimes you can do that, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you don't even know and nobody knows, and you may be the first person who discovers there's some sensory issues here. But as soon as you do, then you want to take action to make sure that the space is supportive and welcoming for that child's sensory differences. Step number two, what are the pragmatic things you can do? Think about lighting, think about sound, think about smells, and think about the tactile experience, particularly just seating options. And then the last one is movement opportunities. So think about, is there anything in my playroom in terms of lighting that could be triggering or problematic for a child with visual sensory differences? Possibly. I think the key to this is be able to adjust, have variety, be able to turn off that overhead light and do light in some other way. So think about how you can get different light options into your playroom. Try to avoid smells. The air freshener plug-in, right? Or spraying the room with some kind of air freshener, or having a candle burning that's a really strong scent. Even yourself, the cologne, the perfume you may wear, just try to avoid these strong smells being present, and try to create a playroom space that's kind of odorless. Then you won't have to worry about that particular odor or smell, or how it's being manifest being something that's really irritating or dysregulating for your sensory different child that's coming into the playroom. Also think about the seating. Is there different options? In the playroom, can they sit on sort of a hard floor? Can they sit on a soft, fluffy rug? Can they sit in a hard chair? Can they sit in a bean bag? Is there just different places for them to kind of sit, lounge, put their body so it feels comfortable for them? just again, like with lighting, having the variety is really the goal there. And then also sound. Sometimes it's hard to control sound that comes into the playroom that isn't from the playroom, depending on where your playroom is, right? There may be outside sounds that come in that you can't necessarily stop. So just kind of being aware and sensitive to this, maybe preparing a child if you know that there are going to be some sounds that they might hear. Also, could you have some noise reducing headphones available that they could put on if they wanted to as they were in the playroom, or some noise reducing earplugs or something like this that might help with any sort of sound issues that could be problematic. And then the last one is just space for movement opportunities. If you can have just some space in your playroom so kids can move their body, this is great, because a lot of kids, they like to move their body when they have sensory differences. They want to change their body position and they want to move that body. And so being able to have a space that allows for that safely is a great way to have a sensory welcoming playroom. The last thing to think about is toys and materials. So how you stock your playroom. Just don't forget about sensory toys and materials, because for sensory different kids, they may prefer sensory play over any other type of play. And so let's have some of those toys and materials so they can find their play preference in your playroom. So for example, there's all kinds of sensory toys, right? And materials. You can get sensory balls. You can get things like Play-Doh, clay. You can get all different kinds of sensory tubs and put them in there, like a bean tray, a sand tray, a rice tray. So the child can have these different tactile experiences, all kinds of fidget items, things that can be manipulated, things that can be stretched, things that can be squished, right? You can also put in movement toys like an exercise ball, a wobble board, a balance board, even like a jump rope. I mean, just different things where they can move their body through a particular toy or material. There's really a great variety. And so it wouldn't be hard for the play therapist to find some of these materials and toys, have a little bit of variety, and put them in their playroom so they're accessible if the child would like that. If you can just think about these ideas and sort of go in and transition your playroom in regard to some of the things that I've talked about here in this clip, I think you'll really have a sensory welcoming, sensory informed playroom. And that is such a good thing to have when we work with kids with sensory differences. It's so affirming of them, and it also really helps them. And if they come into your playroom and they can find things that are sensory pleasing versus dysregulating, you're going to have a better session in regard to anything that you're working on with that child. So hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching the clip, and make sure that you subscribe to our AutPlay YouTube channel, and you can always check out our website for more information on products, books, trainings, etc. Take care, and we'll see you next time.